Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend and speak at GeckoCon. So the topic for our panel today is AAA or casual, two divergent paths to 1 million daily active users. All of you run games, very interesting to hear. I mean, you guys are taking different paths. Some of you are building AAA, some of you are building casual. We just love to hear more about it today. I'm sure we'll learn a lot today. So I think before we start to go too deep into the topic, it would be good to have everybody do a round of introduction. What do you do in your projects? Whether you guys are casual or AAA, how will you categorize your projects? So yeah, maybe we start with Michael.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, welcome everyone to the 2024 bull market. Let's go.
Yeah.
That wasn't very exciting, but hi everyone. I'm Michael Wagner. I'm the co-founder.
It's too early in the day, man.
Not enough coffee or too much alcohol last night. I don't know.
100K is not there yet, so soon. But yeah, we are in PVE mode now. Yeah.
Okay, pre-bull. I'll accept that. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Michael Wagner. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Automata, which is the studio behind Star Atlas. Star Atlas is an ultra high fidelity space adventure open world MMO. We're building that in Unreal Engine 5, and we're coupling that with a global borderless digital economy I've been describing this, so we've all heard of the metaverse. I've been describing what we're doing at Star Atlas as more of a cyber nation. And I think the real distinction there is where Web3 comes into this. We're providing real economic opportunities, real financial incentives, and real labor markets. It's one of the reasons why our team and I'm here in Thailand today and Southeast Asia in general is I think there are massive, massive opportunities when you couple crypto, blockchain, Web3 with any type of gaming concept, and we'll dig into some of those different versions of it, but excited to be here.
Sweet. Yeah, my name is Luke. I'm the founder of Pixels. Pixels is a cozy, casual MMO. I think the easiest way to describe the game is it's kind of like if Stardew Valley was an MMO. But we love play to earn, and we've been innovating a lot on using Web3 as a new way to acquire users that doesn't quite fit the traditional Web 2 way of doing it. We actually hit 1 million DAU at one point as well too, through just like this very casual, cozy MMO. And we did that all on $0 of ad spend. And to us, that's the really interesting part of Web3 gaming. So yeah, we think it's an awesome industry. It's still really immature, and there's a lot to explore here. But yeah, we love it, and we all are about play to earn at Pixels.
Hello for the Thai audience สวัสดีครับทุกคนผมชื่อ Yanni นะครับยินดีต้อนรับสู่ครุนเทพนะครับ So my name's Yanni Aiko. I'm the creative director at Heroes of Mavia. Heroes of Mavia is a base building mobile Web3 AAA game, and of course we have a privilege of being on the stage talking today.
Wow, Yanni, tough act to follow. I wouldn't be able to say anything in Thai, unfortunately. My name is Oleg. I'm co-founder and CEO of Sweat Economy. We've started 10 years ago with a business called Sweat Coin. And as name suggests, we wanted to be in blockchain in 2014. We couldn't. It took us until 2022. But by then, our Web2 business, Sweatcoin, had 120 million users. And right now, that has 180 million users. And Web3 has 80 million token holders, 3 million actives. Not DAO, but close to 500,000 DAO on the Sweat wallet.
Nice. So
and sorry, yeah, we invented Move to Earn originally. It wasn't called Move to Earn back then, but yeah, basically we pay you to walk.
True OG over there, 100 million users. So AAA games and casual games obviously sit at different ends of the spectrum, each appealing to its own type of audience. Going across the panel, what were some of the factors that influenced your decision whether to build AAA or casual games?
Sure. I think for us it was at least 3 different things. The first of which is really a basic one. We launched in early 2021 with just a concept. It was just a white paper and a dream, and that was January 2021. And I won't say that we were the first, but we were within the first cohort of game studios that wanted to bring something AAA or ultra high fidelity quality to the blockchain space, and we saw an opportunity there to be a first mover of sorts. Almost contradictory to that is these games take a phenomenal and extraordinary amount of time to complete, but you can really transform the way that you build and release from the traditional game industry, in that you don't have to package the entire product up and release it all at one point and hope for it to be a big hit. Our entire ethos and philosophy around game development is building iteratively, releasing modules, and gaining players and traction as you go. So first part for us was we saw an opportunity to be a first mover. I think secondary to that is we've had a major emphasis on our economic architecture from the very beginning. Luke, you mentioned play to earn. There was a period of time through 2022, 2023 where people were saying play to earn is dead, like just build a great game. And I was always contrarian to that. I do not think that play to earn is dead. I think it's one of the biggest value propositions that crypto brings to gaming, is that players can own their assets and they can earn from their assets. And it does create real economic opportunity for them. So I never thought play to earn was dead, in spite of the fact that through a bear market we saw token prices going down, and therefore direct impact to players' ability to earn. But kind of bringing this back to why did we go AAA, it was this ability to create a gaming product where it was simple to learn but very difficult to master. And so, to me, creating economic sustainability in an MMO over time requires providing players the ability to specialize in their gameplay. Because what isn't sustainable and what will lead to a collapse in game economies is this idea of hyperinflationary emission curves where, sure, the incentives look really great at the beginning and you attract a lot of initial users for those financial incentives, but ultimately they just are not sustainable, and you see a collapse in the token price because there's no utility on the back end of that token. How are people using it besides cashing it out? And so for us, our focus is on creating a peer-to-peer driven economy where the majority of your income is actually going to come from trading, exchanging with other players. And that means being able to go out and capitalize on an opportunity in the universe to mine and refine a particular resource and then sell that to other players. And so we see this exchange between them as being the driving force between their earnings. So I'll just stop there with those two particular issues, but I think there's a place for every genre of gaming, and again, we'll be talking about it today.
Yeah, I think we're really aligned on views of play to earn. I talk about play to earn all the time, and it's really easy to focus on the earn portion. But the reason we were attracted to the space was because we saw what Axie Infinity did. And we also saw the reaction after the first iteration of play to earn maybe didn't work out in the way that people thought it was going to. But we like to ask the question at Pixels, what if it did work? What if we actually pulled it off? What does that look like? And how do we actually get there? So our approach was, instead of going AAA to build the foundation, and I think we're both trying to build the same foundation, us and Star Atlas, is we need to take a really iterative approach and we need to build super quick because we don't actually know what's going to work inside of Web3 gaming and what's not. We build a lot more like a startup at Pixels than we do a traditional game studio, and that's why we're able to get stuff out so quickly and try some new things. We've probably released 150 public updates over the last 2.5 years at Pixels, and every single thing is basically a new innovation on core systems, economics, earning distributions, and then gameplay as well too. So yeah, we truly believe that you need a great game to make play to earn work. We're not trying to dismiss that, but then there's also a whole nother layer of innovation that has to happen on top of the game that is still across the space quite immature. And how do you mature a market? You go out, you build quickly, you try new things, and you have to take a lot of shots on goal in order to make it happen. So that's why we like the casual game industry for us, because it allows us to build at a lower fidelity much quicker and build the core systems that we need to in order to actually bring sustainable play to earn to market. So that's kind of what we've been thinking here.
Yeah, I think I can agree with both of you guys as well. I think Mavia, for us, obviously, as much as it can seem a very simple to play game, obviously we wanted to focus on both concepts of AAA and casual. Obviously, for us, obviously, I think Mavia has a lot of esports foundations built behind it as well. So yeah, for us, we didn't compromise. We wanted to choose both. Obviously, making something that's casual to play, but also AAA.
You know what? We actually don't think about ourselves as a game. People are talking about move to earn, but we are thinking of ourselves as a product that plays a certain role in your life. And when we're designing the product, we're not even optimizing for your screen time. We're not trying to maximize the amount of time the person is looking at the screen, because our gameplay, using that term, is actually happening in real time. And if you're opening our app for 15 seconds and you're looking at the progress, basically how much you walked and how much you earned, that reminds you that movement has value, and all of a sudden people are making different decisions through their day. Rather than taking a bus, they're walking. Rather than going for a short walk with the dog, they're going for a lot longer one. These tiny little changes, nudges through the day are changing lives significantly and actually creating quite a lot of value. For us, the biggest decision is to go mobile only. Because if we want to get next billion people in Web3, it is not going to happen on desktop, it is not going to happen on laptop, it's not going to happen on the web. Because there aren't that many people in the world that actually own decent enough spec devices like that. It's going to be on the mobile, and it's going to be native mobile. And the other thing that we're focusing on like crazy is UX. because when we were researching our users about going into Web3, because we had 120 million users, and we actually had whole segment of empty nester mums, so 55 plus female in the US. And we were really concerned, if we're going to go into crypto, are they going to start thinking about Silk Road? Is it going to be a massive turnoff for them? No. Actually, every single one of them wanted to go into Web3. The two things that they were constantly citing were user experience, because they got in front of 24 words, and there was a big disclaimer on top: don't take a screenshot, don't write it down, take a nail, scribble it on pieces of metal, split it into two halves, put it in two geographical locations. Crazy stuff. And the other thing is, even if they mastered it, then the first thing they normally had to do was to put card out and buy quite a lot of ETH, because that's where the game was. And they didn't want to do it because they looked at it as a basically pay to learn, and they were the ones paying, and they were afraid of doing that. If you can do mobile, really good UX, and not charge instantly, but allow them to go in, get the first steps, hook them in, then all of a sudden they were becoming kind of really valuable users or players.
Next question maybe more for Michael and Yanni. How much do you think the law, graphics, and production value aspects of a game matter to Web3 games today? Particularly as AAA game developer, because obviously a sink for resources to put in investment to make all this high production value, graphics and so on. But resources that you could really just deploy to other aspects of the game, how important do you think they are?
I think it's massively important because obviously we're the underdogs, right? So in the space of Web3 gaming, obviously we're competing against Web2. And obviously if you look at the Web2 industry in terms of graphic-wise, obviously we're competing. So for us, obviously, I think it's a huge aspect of very important for a AAA game to obviously have graphics as high as you possibly can, to obviously to make as much noise and be noticed.
Is it even realistic to compete against the Web2 games? Like they obviously have much larger budget. Like can you even compete, or do you try to find ways to compete on that front?
I think obviously Web3 gaming obviously is right now obviously very looked at undervalued. So I think that's why it's good to compete against Web2. Because I do think in the future obviously Web3 will be the future of gaming overall.
I'd completely agree, and I think to your second question as to whether or not we can compete, it's just a matter of time. First of all, the industry is reaching a stage of maturation where we have really solid products that are coming to market. I think one of the bigger obstacles to overcome in competing for that Web2 audience, when the time is right to do it, by the way, and I might just go off on a very quick tangent and say we at Star Atlas are not even going after that Web2 gamer yet, because we don't necessarily believe that our product is in the state to target that particular audience. And further, I believe that the Web3 audience and their propensity to spend is substantially higher than that of a Web2 gamer. We have players in the Star Atlas ecosystem that have spent $4 or $5 million on game assets, right? And so it's going to be very challenging to find a standard user that is willing to spend that type of money on a game asset until they can fully comprehend the potential value that creates for them. And so you have this massive obstacle to overcome of education, which is a big part of when we're going to go after mainstream. But I'm also pretty strongly against this narrative that Web3 needs mainstream in order to succeed. It's already succeeding, and I mean the fact that Pixels has over 1 million DAU, I think is an example of the fact that there are plenty of players in Web3 today, and this audience is only continuing to grow, and more people are getting interested and attracted to crypto. So without having to even go after that alternative or more traditional audience of mainstream gamer, we're going to see people come into Web3 and discover games as a result of that, and especially when people are successful with whatever endeavor they have in crypto. It might be trading. That's how a lot of people get into it, is speculative trading on different assets, maybe memes. But when somebody experiences a 1,000x on a meme coin and they turn $1,000 into $1 million, they are looking at reinvesting that capital into more crypto assets, and it's possible that they invest that into games. So that was all a bit of a tangent from the original question, which is how important is lore in Web3. And what I would suggest is that what most gamers are going to games for is escapism. And so you want to be able to put yourself into a world that isn't your everyday life. It's entertainment value, and you want to be able to fully immerse yourself into that. And so I think the story, the narrative, the lore is critical in being able to accomplish that. But I would say what's more important about it is lore and story and depth of a game is what's going to lead to retention. So it's one thing to be able to capture the initial interest of a user and get them engaged in your game. And we have this huge advantage of being able to say, here's a financial incentive if you actually play and spend time here. But we want people to want to spend time in the game. And the way you do that is through lore and story.
Next, maybe for Oleg and Luke, with a more casual game, the challenge would probably is to to have gamers coming back again and again, maybe not every time, but like after a few hours or even days, repeat this over a long period of time. Maybe Oleg, you just said that maybe you don't want your gamers to come, your players to come back all the time. Actually, I had the Sweatcoin app. I haven't really opened it, but I'm casually playing the game, actually. What are some of the tricks here, like to get people to come back and play? I mean, Pixels is more active. I mean, for Sweatcoin, it's more passive, I suppose, but curious to hear.
Yeah, so we have the opinion at Pixels of, like, we do think we should be competing with Web 2 games, but we think that Web 3 offers unique value props that makes it so competitive against Web 2 gaming, where we don't necessarily have to focus on the same things that Web 2 games focus on. So for us, we think about retention, optimization, all the fundamentals a lot. Like, you need a fundamentally solid game to succeed in crypto, because when we think about what we're doing here, we're creating something of value, right? Games have value, people spend money on games, and Web 2 kind of has game value down to a science at this point. Like, if you go to a VC, if you're trying to raise money for a Web 2 game, they don't even look at the game. They ask you for like 5 different metrics. They look at your day 1 retention, your day 7, your day 28. They look at LTV per user. Like, they look at all these metrics, right? And you should be thinking about that in the context of your Web 3 game as well. Like, if I weren't to give my users incentives, like, are they coming back on day 1? Like, are they coming back on day 7? And are those fundamentals there? Now, the interesting part about Web 3 gaming is it adds other elements to the gameplay that you might not have thought about before that does make the game just more fun and interesting in general. Like, if you start to add like tokens into a game and you start to add earnings, it makes everything that you do in the game matter a lot more. There's another layer of fun that's added just from the financialization. But then 2, you can get a lot more targeted with some of the metric optimization with incentives. And that's how I like to think about the earn aspect in Pixels. We don't just give earnings out to people for no reason. We're actually very, very targeted with the earnings inside of the game to boost the metrics that we want to be seeing boost and to basically create more ecosystem value. That's kind of the core of Web3 tech in my mind. I like to call it smart token distribution or smart earnings, where essentially you want to look at all the different users in your ecosystem. You want to see, what does this user do when I give them a reward? Does it actually help the ecosystem grow, or are they just leaving the ecosystem? Because if I give out an incentive to a user who immediately leaves the ecosystem the next day, that's not doing good for the ecosystem at all, right? So we actually want to start to give out rewards to the players who are most likely to stay inside of the game, who are most likely to use and spend the token, and that's like basically that half that I've been talking about the earning tech that we do. So yeah, Web3 can boost all of this if you do it in a smart way, or it can really hurt the game if you don't do it in a good way.
I think for us it's all about psychology. You really have to think about what role your product plays in people's lives. We don't optimize for daily usage, we optimize for multiple times a week, because what we realized is that if you interact once every couple of days with our app, you remember that movement has value, and then people are more active on a daily basis. If they haven't engaged with us for 5 or 6 days, then you can start seeing declining of the baseline of level of physical activity per day. So, and our mission is to make the world physically active, so we're optimizing for that metric. And the tools that you have are, you know, as you just described, you know, the earnings. And it's interesting if you're starting to think about it in the context of dopamine, oxytocin, and rewards. You know, people roughly know how much they walked, but they don't know precisely. But because there are numbers involved and there are decimals and it all looks like currency, it's actually quite curious and interesting for them to see, okay, how much have I earned today? And we're using this as a hook Not necessarily for them to withdraw or whatever, but to just remind them that movement has value. I actually wanted to respond to you, Michael. I completely disagree that we should not be thinking about bringing the next billion people. You know what? If you're starting to think about parallels between internet and Web3, we're now in terms of 1999 of internet adoption, about 500 million people. And you know what happened in 2000? .com boom, bust. And then we entered into consumer internet era that actually created all the returns. And you know, kind of, if you're looking right now at valuation of internet companies prior to 2000, it's like blips close to zero, because Google's and Facebook created an incredible amount of value. And my hunch is that in 10 years' time, when we're going to be looking at 2 trillion that we had just a few days ago, that is going to be on zero, because the consumer crypto and consumer adoption is going to go through the roof, and that means we need to develop products for the next billion people. People who are not yet here, people who will never be able to afford $3 to $5 million in a game, because if you're going into continents like Africa, the average net worth of at least our users is $3 to $5. They don't have bank accounts, they cannot get cards, they're not engaged into traditional financial system because local bank wouldn't open the bank account because it's not worth their while. So I think that we can bring, and we do, 90% of our users are brand new to Web3. We teach them the ropes, and one of our ways of making money is actually supplying users or introducing users to other projects and products in Web3, because everyone wants users who understand Web3 at least a little bit, and we're monetizing it. Like within the next 18 months, we will become profitable in Web3. In Web2, we've been profitable for already many years.
If I may just offer a rebuttal to that. First of all, I do completely agree with you that we should be targeting a global audience. My point was on the timing of reaching out to that audience, and in particular for Star Atlas's product, that timing is not now. We're still relatively early stage in this ultra high fidelity product, and us allocating marketing spend or capital to reaching out to a traditional gamer would be misspent and misallocated at this time. So that's just for us. That's not to say that other products such as yours, in particular a mobile product, that can have immediate reach with those users shouldn't be doing it. And kind of the irony and the funny thing is when I talk to my team about what is the potential audience for Star Atlas, and I say, well, it's the world. You know, it's like they'll benchmark us against, here's our hover racing gameplay modality. And so against other racing genres, what is the potential DAU off of that? Or this is an arena shooter, third-person shooter extraction game. What is the market potential of that? You know, and these numbers are incredibly low. We're talking about, you know, less than 1 million daily active users off of some of these, some of the most successful AAA games out there today. Benchmark us against EVE Online, which has, you know, been around for 20 plus years now. I could be misquoting this, but I think they have about 20,000 daily active users in their space, you know, RTS MMO, which I think is cool, but that is insignificant to the grand scheme. What's very important is specifically because of the Web3 integration, we have this opportunity to bring people into a new sustainable economy, as I commented on. And that's why I think the market potential of something like Star Atlas or any Web3 game really reaches a global audience and is not limited to what you would traditionally benchmark your product against. So I do completely agree with you. We should be going after the world, and maybe you guys are in the place to do it right now. Star Atlas is comfortable working within the Web3 sphere right now and expanding in the future.
I mean, at the end of the day, we all have to start somewhere and then eventually grow. I mean, you guys are at different stages of development as well. Oleg has been working on this for 10 years, got a larger audience, so it makes sense that he's going after the world. Best we got to start with an ideal customer profile, ideal game profile, on who would perfect, and then eventually scale from then on. Yeah, I'm moving on a little bit to a different topic. Let's talk about tokens and NFT. And all of you have this in one form or another as part of your games. I'm curious, as game developers, how do you think about tokens and NFTs? Do you think it ads, and maybe I think Oleg has nodding his head. You clearly gone through this path from no tokens, NFTs to a lot of tokens. How do you guys, like all of you, how do you guys think of this? Do you think this adds a new layer of complexity? Do you think the ability to monetize these tokens and NFTs are a big draw for your users or your gamers, or not really? Or can they, or your gamers think of them as just as a normal form of in-game currency and asset, like in Web2 games? These are points that you collect that don't mean much. Curious to hear how you think about it, these tokens and NFTs.
Yeah, so I love the integration of tokens and NFTs in the games. They add a ton of complexity though, and I think that's a little understated when developers come into like building Web3 games, and that's why we're not really seeing Web 2 developers doing so well when they come into Web 3, because you can't just build a Web 2 game and then add tokens on top of it. It doesn't work. If it did work, then you would just see acquisitions happening and adding tokens on top of them. So you really need to be thoughtful about basically the integration of tokens and NFTs into every single aspect of the game. And I think one trend that I'm seeing right now is that people are kind of dismissing play to earn. And they're saying that, oh, we're just going to have NFTs in this part of the game, or we're going to like silently integrate a token. If you do that, your game becomes play to earn, whether you like it or not. And I think that's something that the space doesn't understand quite yet. And they'll start to see it once they have live tokens in the game and economy, because it's slightly unavoidable. If you have an in-game asset that's able to be traded on a marketplace that you don't control, which is what an NFT or a token should be, unless you want to really, really like walled garden your ecosystem, and then I would question why you're adding Web3 components in the first place. It's going to happen. So you need to be very thoughtful about the integration, and that's where a lot of the innovation in Web3 gaming still needs to happen. Now, when you do it, it can be a crazy superpower. You can unlock growth with a game that you might not have been able to inside of Web2. But it becomes a new type of game as well. It becomes a play-to-earn game. It becomes a Web3 game. And that's the interesting part that we're all trying to figure out still.
It's bloody pain in the neck. And if you can avoid token, do it at all cost. And if you have to launch it, kick the can down the road as far as you can. That's my advice always to companies that kind of seek the advice. And the reason for it is, I think that a lot of people overcomplicate things. Token is your business model. You need to figure out your business model, and it needs to include the token. But it doesn't have to be a token as you're figuring it out. For example, when we launched in 2015, we had point system because there was no blockchain fast enough and robust enough for us to build on. So Sweat coins were basically, our blockchain was Postgres database sitting in AWS. It was embarrassing, but it got us 120 million users. And we were talking about it turning into crypto when the time is right. So a lot of people were sitting there on sidelines, accumulating and playing the game. And I see it now as a blessing, because then a bunch of guys launched in 2016, 2017. There were ICOs, moved to earn, everyone perished. Then there was, of course, StepN, which is the most frequent question that I get. So how are you different from StepN? Well, we have 3 million active users. StepN last week had 4. Not 4 million, 4. So that's a big difference. And the reason is that we figured out the business model and how token works and how we communicate it to our users. One thing that I realized, it is extremely important, especially for Web 2 person, when they come into Web 3, the nagging thing that they have in the back of their mind is, why does it have any value at all? And if you can really simply, easily explain that or give them the feeling that it is valuable, you just covered from 0 to 1 distance, and after that it becomes a lot easier. And in our case, it is because everyone knows that their movement has value, because when I say, your physical activity is valuable, everyone nods. And then I ask how much, and they kind of go, what do you mean? But they know that it has some value, it's non-zero. And after that, we build sustainable tokenomics. So for example, we are profitable on a per user basis. So our emissions of token, so people walk and they earn that, are lower than the overall demand that we're creating through different utilities. Rewards, staking, kind of partnerships, etc., etc. And we also generate very healthy revenue outside of our token that we can use for buybacks, and we will when we're profitable. So if we're starting to calculate that, we now have a, as I said, profitable user And as we scale, the whole tokenomics is becoming better and better and better. So I would say you need to think about the token, but don't launch it until you know exactly what you're going to be doing, because changing tokenomics, changing minting curves, changing lockups is extremely upsetting for the community.
Yeah, I think NFTs and the token, obviously, I think is a really important part of the game. Obviously, with Mavia, we released the NFT land. Obviously, we released Mavia land on OpenSea a long time before we actually launched the game. So I think initially it helps at the start, but in the long run, obviously, you can actually be able to give the incentive for players to be able to get involved in the game more. Obviously, we released Ruby, and Ruby is our in-game currency. Obviously, this is what players can earn. Obviously, then we're doing an integration where Ruby can be integrated to Mavia token. So obviously, players play in Mavia, they are able to earn the Ruby, and the Ruby is actually able to be used in-game, obviously, for trading and buying NFTs. And obviously, we've created our Ruby marketplace now. And obviously, this is where traders can actually trade their in-game currency and their rewards that they've got from their NFTs. Obviously, then integrated to the Mavia token. So yeah, I do think it's really important.
I might just dovetail on one of Oleg's comments, which was effectively the way I would interpret it and communicate it is like you need to avoid Ponzi-nomics at all costs. Like that's never going to work. And
absolutely.
No Ponzi has ever worked. And introducing tokens as a way to facilitate that isn't going to work either. What I will say is I think NFTs and tokens in general undeniably add value to the end user, and this has perhaps been beaten into everyone's heads here, but NFTs effectively represent ownership. So this is digital ownership of an asset. And to Luke's point, yes, you absolutely need free flow, decentralized markets for people to exchange those. Otherwise, what is the point? You're not actually providing any ownership to anyone if they're not able to exchange that with another user. So that's the NFT side. I think the crypto assets themselves represent the economics. Now, how valuable they are is going to be determined by the team's specific implementation of how they bring these items to market. I will note the one complication that I think really comes from both NFTs and tokens because of the intrinsic volatility is you will have users that are approaching your product with different motivations and different intentions. And in crypto in particular, in a lot of cases, these people just want the big return and they don't necessarily care about interacting with your ecosystem. Well, the challenge with that is when you have exogenous macroeconomic factors and forces such as bear markets or bull markets in the secular sense, well, largely we have zero control over what happens in those. And if you were to look at market correlation of just about every asset in crypto, it's going to go up or down based on if the market is going up or down. What I'll also say though is I think that there's an opportunity here as we've said the term a lot, but as the products get more and more mature, where you are somewhat insulated or your ecosystem is somewhat insulated from those macroeconomic forces, and this is going to occur when you start to attract a non-financially motivated user to your ecosystem. And I think that's what's great about gaming, actually, and gaming is probably the most well-poised to capture this dynamic is you will have gamers that come in just to have fun. And maybe they're even willing to spend a little bit of capital in the ecosystem on a month-over-month basis because they're enjoying the experience. And perhaps they're spending that money not with a developer, but with another user who is interested in producing and capturing value off of the economy. And so when you're able to create that type of dynamic, well, now the people that are playing to have fun, they don't care if the markets are up or down. They don't care what Bitcoin's doing. They're happy to buy those resources from the person that's producing them regardless of what's going on in the market. And so, perhaps we're not there yet. Perhaps this cycle we get there, but you do have to deal with this negativity in sentiment when crypto markets are down because you are always the one that's at fault regardless of whether or not the attribution is legitimate.
There is subtle difference between play to earn and play and earn?
Yeah, actually, that's one of my next question as well, right? So I mean, in games as well, like we've gone through many trends. We started with play to earn, and then we talk like, okay, let's go to play and earn, and then this year everybody started talking, let's do tap to earn now. I'm curious to hear from from all of you, like that's I mean, we have moved to earn before tap to earn as well. That was part of the play to earn thing. But like, do you think all these things, like these trends, like does it make sense for you to follow? Do you think it matters, or they just trends like you just stick to what you're good at and just kind of ignore all this noise in the market?
I mean, okay. I mean, personally, Squares, we don't actually follow those trends. I understand that concept as a creator myself, obviously on social media. I understand the concept of potentially engaging with an audience in different ways. It can be kind of creative, but yeah, for me, I don't follow I don't follow that, and obviously I don't think that we will follow those sort of trends, although good or not.
We always study it, and actually we are now in the process of releasing our own Telegram bot, but we took a long time because I saw two issues straight away. I mean, everyone heard Hamster, 131 million active users. Do you know how many Hamster token holders there are in the world right now? 1.5 million. In order to be Hamster token holder, you have to prove your humanity. The gap is 99%. Dogs, 60 million active users. How many token holders? 5 million. So more than 90% of all of these active users are bots. And we shouldn't trick ourselves. That's bullshit, right? That's not business. It just, I don't know, sort of pump and the froth for the sake of froth. But there is something there. Approximately 10% of those humans, actually, that these businesses acquired, they are crypto natives and they already have some balances. So once you start kind of going down the funnel, it starts to make sense. But we need to start confirming who is the bot, who is a human, and we need to stop doing this kind of linear shit that you can automate with one single line of code to tap when the hamster appears. So, but we'll get there. I mean, my advocacy has always been we need to focus on active users or active humans a lot more than on TVL, because TVL will follow, because humans own TVL. If you get people, you can get TVL. If you don't get people, you'll never get TVL.
Yeah, so play to earn for me, it's like a marketing term, right? Not everybody in our ecosystem earns. Like some people actually are net spenders, and that's what we optimize a lot for right now. So when we think about how we're trying to grow the ecosystem, right? I like to think about it kind of like a free-to-play game, where in free-to-play, games typically spend tens of millions of dollars to acquire users that never spend any money. And only about 2 to 5% of users in free-to-play typically monetize. And like a lot of the monetization in free-to-play gaming, this is not anything to do with Web3, is kind of targeting whales, right? And the model works pretty similarly in Web3 in my mind as well too, except you add another category of users of the earn segment. So you typically have like 3 segments. You have earn, you have free-to-play that are kind of net zero, and then you have spenders inside of the game. And a lot of the work that Pixels is doing is on this user identification and segmentation. And the most important thing when you dig into the segmentation, when you're thinking about reward targeting, when you're thinking about like who you want to be giving out like tokens to, is you have to determine the bot or not bot thing first. Like if you do any segmentation, your first step is 0 and 1, like bot, not bot. And a lot of Web3 games have not put in that work, is what I'll be completely honest about. And if you don't, you're never going to have a sustainable ecosystem, because you're never going to have spenders in the ecosystem. What he was talking about with profitability is something that we're still working towards at Pixels, but it has to start with that real user identification. And to me, that's the core problem set inside of Web3 in general. It's not just Web3 gaming, it's a Web3 or an entire internet problem. There's kind of 2 ways to figure it out. Either KYC, or you get really heavy into the data science. And we're trying to go more of the free-to-play KYC-less route.
You know, you talk about bots, right? It's actually, you know, about how you have your users, you don't know whether they're bots or real. I mean, you guys have a financial incentive in play, like you know, if you...
No, we know 99.9% of our users are real humans.
Yeah,
because
I mean, for you,
we track steps, yeah.
I mean, it's funny because like, I mean, we run CoinGecko. There's nothing, you can't earn any money playing or tapping on CoinGecko, but like we have the same problem. Like a lot of these users are bots. How do we differentiate like the real users from the bot users? That is hard work. Like a lot of, I mean, it's just a Web3 problem in general. Maybe Web2. Like there's a lot of bots out there.
I thought you were announcing GeckoCon today.
No, the GeckoCon today.
Well, actually, just on the previous question, and it's related to this one with respect to bots, is I'll provide a slightly controversial take on this, which is that within Star Atlas, we don't necessarily care about bots per se. It's not really a challenge for us because your ability to generate income flows and earn tokens within Star Atlas is determined based on the amount of capital investment that you've put into the game. So I use the term investment very loosely here. Obviously, it's like a sensitive subject in crypto. I'm talking about from business operations, capital investment into assets that allow you to operate within the game. Well, if you're a player with zero assets, but you're automating everything, well, you're still not earning anything. A big part of our ethos is this idea of composability and extensibility and building fully on-chain gaming logic and opening up APIs and SDKs and documentation and IDLs so that developers can co-create our ecosystem. They can build their own extensions around it. We encourage this. We want people to build tools and services that other users can leverage. And we have multiple teams that are building versions of automation within our game that don't exist from our side just yet, not because we don't want them, but because we want to focus on core gameplay loops. But for anyone out there who's played, StarCraft or Warcraft or any RTS in the history of time, you can always set up automated processes. And your job as the player, if you want to call it a job, or your responsibility is defining the strategy. So where are you placing your units? What do you have those units doing? What buildings are you constructing next? And where are you going to position your attacking units so that you can take over more territory? Something like this. Well, automation is not a bad thing. And we have third-party developers who have created tools that allow people to automate routes in Star Atlas so that they can do certain things. This, to us, we have zero issue with this to the extent that they're widely available, open source, and I don't even care if they charge for them. In fact, I kind of hope that these third-party developers charge in some way for some of these tools. But what's important is that there's wide access to everyone within our ecosystem, so there's no unfair advantage for one user versus another. But beyond that, it is perfectly acceptable to create automation, which people oftentimes refer to botting in Star Atlas, because again, the only way you earn is based on the amount of capital that you have invested into the game and the assets that you have employed. So to us, botting is fine. There's no free way to earn in Star Atlas.
Are you profitable?
We're profitable, yes.
Yeah.
All right. We have 5 minutes more to go before the end of the panel. So quickly from everybody, I'm curious to hear, we're towards the end of the year for 2024. Bitcoin's at all-time high, crypto's at all-time high. How do you see Web3 gaming develop in 2025? What are some of the things that you're most excited about to look forward to in 2025? So let's do a quick round before we wrap up the panel here.
Well, my head's buried in the sand, pretty much exclusively Star Atlas. So I'll just talk about us. I mean, we have some really exciting stuff coming. 3 or 4 major launches next year. That includes our full multiplayer support across different modalities. So that is our hover racing, that's combat racing, that's time trial racing. Our arena shooter and extraction gameplay mode is coming out. And then we're also bringing our full on-chain game economy and on-chain gaming logic from what we currently call Sage. And for those not familiar, we have a browser-based implementation of the game, Star Atlas Golden Era, that's a 2D top-down RTS MMO. This is the on-chain economy, and this is the on-chain gaming logic. It's actually where most of our daily active users live today, and it's not the hyper-realistic, ultra-high fidelity version of the game, but they're interested in capturing the economic value, and that's where they're spending most of the time. Well, I'm really excited about bringing that fully into Unreal Engine 5 as well, and so players are effectively going to be able to go from an ultra macro scale of the economy of a galaxy and of the universe, view and manage their assets, and then with a toggle, so hitting a key on your keyboard, you effectively go from map RTS management mode down to the third-person view, where you're either inside the interior of your ship or you're engaged in one of these instance-based gameplay modes that we're rolling out, and then also bringing out our capital cities. These are starting towns and central space stations of Star Atlas, and so those are some of the exciting things that we have coming. Generally, if I were to just make a general statement, I think seeing crypto continue to mature and have major product launches that are successful, by the way, and I've been playing Off the Grid. I think it's a fun game. It's enjoyable. I'm rooting for those guys. I hope they do well, because I really do think that we're in a rising tide rises all boats situation, and so success for one is ultimately going to be success for many, maybe not all.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of users come back into Web3 gaming, which is great. I also want to give a warning to the audience too that as a bull market might come, there might be some more entrants in the space. Be very skeptical of everything that you see in the space. Look at revenue. Look at, honestly, revenue is the best metric to be looking at. Average revenue per user as well too. That's much harder to fake than like daily active users or other metrics like that as well too. Look at projects with fundamentals. Look at projects who are like decreasing emissions, increasing revenue, and that will be the best tell of what is the real stuff happening in the bull market.
Yeah, obviously, as Heroes of Mavia, we've only been out for since the beginning of this year. So obviously, in terms of what it was then, in terms of what it is now, it's really exciting to see how much has changed. But also, I'm really excited to see what new updates we're going to be having for the future going into 2025. And also, obviously, we're planning to release other stuff. Obviously, I cannot mention, but yeah, we do have plans of other things that were in the works. But obviously, of course, also excited to see other crypto projects and see how Web3 gaming can adapt going into 2025. And of course, I agree to be skeptical in other things that are coming in.
I would go a little bit higher than gaming. I think that with the benefit of hindsight, we're going to look at this time and we're going to say that that's when the infrastructure bubble burst. We have more than 1,000 chains. Some people say 1,800 chains. If you look at the number of dApps that have more than 1,000 users, which is not a lot, it's less than 600. We have 1,000 railway companies chasing 600 carriages building on them. That's insane. We need more carriages, we need more dApps, we need more stuff that is actually using this infrastructure. But it's very difficult to raise money to build a dApp. It is a lot easier to raise money to build another layer 2. And this needs to change, because returns in infrastructure are going to dry up. It's very similar to internet. 99, Cisco was the biggest company in the world, and then Google and Facebook basically removed them completely from the top even 20. So we are getting into the age of consumer crypto, and if you're a founder and you are thinking about what you're going to do next, really think about dApps, because that's where money is going to be made in Web3 in the long run. Not on the infrastructure, but on consumer crypto. If we're getting into games, my view is that it would be amazing in order to drive mass adoption if more games were going into mobile and mobile native, because whole markets can be penetrated in a snap like that. And virality on mobile is a lot easier to build. You can actually develop real product-based virality that gives you zero cost of acquisition, if you think about it. And on mobile, we experienced you can have 3 loops in a day. So one person invites somebody, and there is a 4th-degree connection emerging within 24 hours. So mobile is really quite incredible thing in terms of driving mass adoption. And for us, the biggest thing that we're focusing on right now is that, again, if you're thinking of a user, users don't want to know what chain you're building on. They don't give a shit if it's on Ethereum, BNB, Solana, whatever. They're interested in an asset. And what we're going to have is the world where all of this chain stuff is going to be abstracted. In the future, you're just going to have your assets, and you're going to manage them. You're going to put them into various different dApps, and you're going to be interacting anything and everything on any chain. And what we're doing, we're adding all the chains, support in Sweat Wallet, all managed with one key, so that you don't have to have stacks of keys sticking around, different addresses, It's all managed for you. As far as you're concerned, you just have one key, any chain and every chain. And what we are working extremely hard on right now is to make sure that every fee that you pay on any chain can be paid in sweat, so that you can literally pay your fees with your feet.
All right. Thank you very much to our panel speakers today for our session. That wraps up our first session for GeckoCon. Thank you very much, Oleg, Yanni, Luke, Michael.
ขอบคุณนะครับ